you add after this will be a part of the head section, right? You get what that means? So an open tag, this is what we call an open tag, right? Anything you add after this will be a part of this specified tag. And each tag has a function which we'll move on to later. But right now we're just looking at what tags are. So this is a tag. Anything, this tag here, right? This line and this line here are a part of the head tag, right? You click on this and it shows you a second tag over here. This is what we call a closing tag. The only difference here is this slash sign, right? So an opening tag will not have a slash sign and a closing tag will have a slash sign. Anything you add between these will become a part of that specific tag, right? So for example, here you have title, right? And you have title, then you have project one, which is the title of this file, and then you have the closing tag. So जो इनके दरमियान में है वो आपके फाइल का टाइटल बन गया. तो जो हेड वाला सेक्शन है अब वो इतना सा है, right? And then you have the body section. So these are two very important tags in HTML, right? Every document has these. Every file, I'll be using file and document interchangeably, so please don't get confused. Every file has these, right? So in the head tag, you basically add all your scripts, anything you want to link to the page, any metadata. So for example, this tag right here, this meta tag, this is for your browser. Okay, this document is using this character set. You don't need to know what it means. It isn't very important. Just the use of the head tag is to let you tell the file itself and the browser any information that you don't want to show to the user. Any information in the head won't be shown to the user except this title. And I'll show you where it shows up later on. So the head tag is essentially for metadata, which is, the definition of that word is data about data, like information about the information inside your file. So right now it isn't really important because we'll move on to this later on, but having this tag is very important for a number of reasons, as you'll find out in later classes. So for this class, we'll mostly be focusing on the body tag, right? So the body tag is where all of the content that the user who accesses your website, all of that content is contained inside the body tag, right? Body tag जब एक दफा खोल दिया तो it'll only close when you've added all of your content, right? उससे पहले आप ये वाला closing tag नहीं डालेंगे. तो it's very important to make sure that you open and close it at the right place, वरना आपका पूरा document खराब हो जाएगा, right? So अब इस tag के अंदर आप अपना सारा content डालते हैं, anything you want the user to see, it's inside this tag. So before we move on, I just like you to make a few notes. A lot of the characters you'll be seeing in HTML are as follows, right? The greater than sign, the lesser than sign. You don't actually have to write this. Just pay attention. The slash, the equals to sign, and quotation marks, right? So if you're using a software like Dreamweaver, अगर आप एक quotation mark डालेंगे तो वो automatically अगला डाल देगा. That was just one tap and it already added two. But if you're using Notepad, like a few people are, so you'll have to add both. Another advantage of Dreamweaver, why we asked you to download it, is it will automatically color different, tags के अंदर जो content होगा वो फर्क color का होगा, signs फर्क होंगे, and so just color coding makes it easier, and also it autofills for you, which we'll be learning about later on. So these 5 signs are very important, right? And they all have their own specific uses. The greater than and lesser than sign are used in tags. The slash is used specifically in closing tags. The equals to sign is used when you have to we'll see where it's used later on. It's used in links, and it's also used here to define the character set. And the quotation marks are also used to add any content that isn't specifically HTML, like file names. and also we'll also be using it later on. So this is just things that you have to remember for later classes, right? So the first, so what we'll be talking about mainly in this class is tags, right? The first most common thing that most people want with their website is for it to have text and information, right? So for that we use the paragraph tag. So if you're not on Dreamweaver, you have to add the closing tag as well. Because I'm using Dreamweaver here, it already adds the closing tag for me automatically, right? So say for example, I type my name is Maair. So yeah, this is, and press Control S to save the file. Yeah, Control S kiya, save it. I'm sorry, I already made this, a file here called Cyber Allies. This is the project which I made on Notepad. This is, I'll be using CS6 project, right? So ये सेव हो गया. तो अच्छा, तो I can do two things now, right? एक तो I can click design here, right? I click design and वो खुद ही, this is what my web page will look like. This is what, when I open a browser, this is what I'll see if I open this specific HTML file, right? Just this. If you're on Notepad, what you have to do is you click on the HTML file that you saved, right? It'll look like something like this. You click on open with, go to Google Chrome, which is my browser of choice. If you don't use Chrome, you should definitely consider using Chrome. And okay, so because I didn't add anything here, kuch nahi aayega, but this is what I saved here in the CS6 project. Sorry about that. Definitely consider using Chrome. CS6 project, yeah. So right, so for Notepad users, this is essentially the same thing as clicking design. So anything you add to the code section will automatically show up here. Also, if you have, on Mac, I haven't really used Macs ever, but it's probably different. But what you basically have to do is save it as an HTML file and open it in a browser. I'm not sure how that'll look like on a Mac, but at the end you should see something like this in your browser window. Okay, so so one more thing here. The closing tag is very important, right? Why? Because so for example, if you add a closing tag here, right? This is kind of an error a lot of people make. So I've added a closing tag before the text I wanted to add is finished, right? So Control S and I refresh here. So because this is a very basic document, वो फिर भी आएगा with slightly more content, so it'll just mess up your entire document, right? So make sure that that the tags that you add are in the right place. Varna you can have overlapping elements. You can have text in the wrong size, text in the wrong place. You can have bold text, where you didn't want it to be bold. Fonts ऊपर नीचे हो सकते हैं. आगे you learn, how we add styles and everything. So make sure that the tags that you add are in the right place. This is a very basic document, तो यहाँ पे कोई मसला नहीं हुआ. But if this was anything more complicated, so it could be very problematic, right? Also, if you noticed, the title that we added shows up here. So here. So the title for this this HTML file it shows up in your browser window, right? Okay, so if there are any questions abhi tak, you can please add them to the chat and I'll take those questions before moving on. So I'm assuming there aren't any questions. Oh, what is the tag in the foot? So this tag right here. Yeah, so this is essentially just, so you don't really have to know about this tag yet, but UTF is basically a character set. This word right here, it stands for character set, and this is essentially to help computers convert your file into machine readable language. It isn't really anything that you have to know about from at this stage. Yes, it will be. I think it will be. Yes, we are recording this session. So yeah, so this tag is essentially just to help your browser convert your file into machine language. You don't really have to know what it does. It isn't, it just makes it easier for browsers, at the back end to translate your document. But it isn't really important, as far as we are concerned right now. It's just a helpful addition when in later stages. So yeah, it isn't really relevant right now, and you don't really need to know what it does. Just it's helpful at the back end. Then, if there aren't any more questions, you can keep on adding them in the chat. I will take them all at the end as well. So I just move on now. Right.
Also,
So
as far as the recordings are concerned, they will be up on the website, the official website of Cyber Rallies soon. So have a look at them on the website.
Yes. So moving on. So this is a paragraph tag, right? Any text you want to add, you will add within these, right? So could be any text. So these can only support text, right? Nothing else. But symbols and everything, those work as well. The one thing that is very interesting is that you can do yeah, and then if you add separate right, so it will automatically make separate paragraphs. लेकिन कभी-कभी होता है कि you want to keep it in the same line, you keep it in the same paragraph, but you want to have either a line break or like a separate paragraph as a whole. So for that we use this tag right here. This is the line break tag or the break tag. What it essentially does is it creates a break in your text or in your file document as a whole, right? So if you want to separate two elements, उनके दरमियान एक line space चाहिए, तो this is the tag that you use. So this is the line. So if you see here, यहाँ पे line का space नहीं है, लेकिन it's moved on to the next line. If you add two of these tags, it will just उसी तरह space बढ़ती रहेगी. Sorry. So if you're on Gmail, you will notice automatically कि वो color जो है वो change होता है. Control S here, and so yeah, so space at the end. So why this tag is interesting is because this is a self-closing tag, right? तो यहाँ पे हमने देखा कि the paragraph tag ये दो हैं, right? There's an opening tag and then there's a closing tag, right? The BR tag along with several other tags as well. Sorry. I'll get to the chat in a second. The BR tag, along with others as well, is one of the tags that you don't have to add a closing. Sorry, you don't have to close this tag. Insert. Okay. So for example, ये tag है ना, there's no closing tag for it. It's just a one-time tag. You don't have to add a closing tag. ये अपना काम करेगा and then it'll stop. तो इसके नीचे you can add whatever you want. जिस तरह हमने कहा कि paragraph tag के बाद closing के paragraph tag के बाद paragraph tag के बाद और paragraph closing tag से पहले जो कुछ आएगा वो paragraph consider होगा, सही है? But anything after a break tag is not considered a part of that section. This doesn't create its own separate space inside the document. It is just a one-time thing, right? So you will either see this or you will see this, right? Both of these are the same thing. They have the exact same purpose, right? Just different ways of writing. Some people prefer this, some people prefer this, right? काम एक ही. Okay, so its functionality is different because you can use it to separate a whole range of different things, right? So if you're adding to, which we'll learn how to add hyperlinks, buttons, and images later on. So a break tag can add line spaces between those as well, right? So for example, if you have two images, you stack two images over each other, right? And you want to add a bit more space between them, you can either do that using CSS or you can also do that using this break tag. but the only reason I'm talking about this right now is so that you understand कि कुछ tags ऐसे भी होते हैं जिनके कोई closing tags नहीं होते because उनका purpose होता है just once and then that's it. Another example of this is the a horizontal rule tag, right? So I'll just show you what it does here. So this, how we used to have ending lines in our copies for when we were done with one topic and we had to move to the next. This essentially adds a similar effect. If you see my screen, if you see my screen on the left, so yeah, this is essentially another example of a one-time tag. Right. Okay. So so another very convenient thing is that you can have tags in tags, continuous tags inside of other tags. So let me just remove this here. Yes. Okay. So for example, we need to make some section of this bold. Okay. Yeah. This can be an annoyance sometimes as well. So make sure that. Right. So अब ये main tag ये है, right? This is the main tag, and इसके अंदर हमने ये introduce किया है. तो this section is inside the paragraph tag as well as these strong tags, right? This section is inside just the paragraph tag. So Control S. So this section right here, ये bold हो जाएगा, and this section ये bold नहीं होगा. Why? Because ये यहाँ पे this is the strong essentially text को strong करने के लिए होता है. तो yeah, so this is essentially how this. Also, if you're using Dreamweaver, a very convenient feature that you have is this right here. So it'll tell you कि main कौन सा tag है, right? So it just highlights it for you. इसके अंदर paragraph, and then उसके अंदर if you click on जो भी whichever tag the content that you are is inside, what will give you just in file viewers you have that entire
file path.
Yeah, so उस तरह समझ आ जाती है कि it's just much more convenient. So if you can, please try to find Dreamweaver. Okay, so I think that's it for tags. I hope all of you understand कि tags का purpose क्या होता है. There's a lot of other tags as well. This is just to help you understand कि the basic principles behind a tag and how they work. How you can have different kinds of them, how you can add tags inside of other tags, and फिर उसके बाद वो खुद ही एक gradient gradually वो जितना अंदर डालते रहते हैं, they only affect the content inside the opening tag and the closing tag, right? So I think we have the time. We could maybe move on to something a bit more complicated. What do you say, Iza? Do you think we should move on to hyperlinks and stuff? Because I think we do have the time.
Yeah, so if anyone has any question, please ask. Nato will move on to the anchors or whatever.
I think we should move on.
Right. Okay. So something that everyone comes across in websites is hyperlinks. Links to other web pages, other websites as well. So it's actually very easy to add a basic hyperlink. So you don't actually have to have it inside of a paragraph. Just that's it. And so you have. This is essentially the syntax for adding a hyperlink, right? So for example, right, so इसके दिन अब this is a link, right? Okay, so if you look at this closely, this is the opening tag, right? This entire section here, okay? This is the closing tag. This part right here, this is the questions in chat. So this is the closing. This is the opening tag right here, And उसके अंदर we have this piece of this word. It isn't actually a word. It's actually an abbreviation, href, which is hyper. I think it stands for hyperlink reference. I could be wrong, but essentially, after you add an equals to sign, you define its value, and then quotation marks के अंदर define its value. You give it, you know, yeah, with the term I'll be using here is defines value. If any terms I use here are incorrect, I will correct them in the Google Classroom. I'll add a post. Just bear with me here. तो quotation marks के अंदर आपने वो link डालना होता है जहाँ आप चाहते हैं कि आपका link redirect करे, सही है? And this is what the user will see at the end. So the user will essentially, अच्छा, so if I save this right here, and so this is a hyperlink, right? So let me open this in a new tab. Sorry. Might be doing this wrong. I'm not. So yes. The link redirects to google.com, right? So is you can add any multitude of hyperlinks all across your document. You can also have this hyperlink inside a तो ये उसी के inline आ गया है. It's the same link, it leads to the same place, but now it's just a part of this paragraph here. This link here is not a part of the paragraph, so you cannot bring this inline. Another thing you can do is you can also, so for example, if I remove this from here, right, I'll be going to the chat in just a second. If I remove this from here, if I add it here, right, and if I close, so my entire paragraph is now a link to google.com, right? And if you notice here, the part that we added in the strong tags here is still bold. The rest is normal. So tags within tags still working here. There are other uses as well for the hyperlink tag here. We'll be covering those later on. Abhi, there's this thing called an anchor link, and we'll be covering that later on once we have a more complicated web page, because abhi single line say you can't really properly understand ke uska kaam kya. Right. So next we'll move on to something which is fairly common in every web page, a heading, right? So you have paragraphs with a bulk of your text, lekin something that really sets the web page apart is a heading on top telling the user what he's looking at. एक तो आपने title डाल दिया ना, so for example Google पे यहाँ पे Google लिखा होता है, Samsung की website पे जाएंगे, like I showed you yesterday, you have Samsung written here. But every web page itself has a different heading. So to add heading, you can one thing you can do is very simply add a second paragraph. This is my heading, and so you'll essentially have a line of text which is separate, but it isn't really, you can't really differentiate between this heading and the actual text. So for that we have what second. Let me just might be doing something. Let me recall whenever we. So you have a heading here, bold. It's obviously bigger, and you can essentially पता चल रहा है कि अच्छा this is a heading and then नीचे text जो है वो अलग है, right? So a very convenient thing with headings is that you can have different sizes. You can configure them to whatever you want later on in CSS, but HTML के अंदर भी in the content layer itself you can also have 6 different sizes, which are one second, let me save it here. Right, so this is heading size 2, and then उसी तरह you have 3, 4, 5, and 6.
We will be defining their styles in your presentation layer later on through CSS.
Yeah, so the convenience this gives you is that you can have 6 different kinds of headings. उनकी जो भी आपने properties रखनी है आप CSS में आराम से change कर सकते हैं. But even in the HTML layer itself, you can also have different styles. Different styles need predetermined styles, 6 different sizes. That's it. But still very convenient when it comes to differentiating even in a very basic web page. So we'll keep it at H1 here. And I think that's all we should cover in this class, क्योंकि फिर बाकी चीज़ें ऐसी हैं कि इकट्ठे करेंगे तो it'll just be easier for everyone to stay on track.
Perfect. Right. So yeah, you can change the font of this web page. That will be covered in this CSS style sheet version that we'll have.
Yeah, so
For the A tag refers to the anchor tag. So like the anchor is something that you'll later learn. The like hyperlink or anchor are pretty much the same. Hyperlink refers to like it takes you to another page. For example, just like Maair showed, it took you to Google. Like if you add an anchor, it will take you to another like heading or an image on the same page. So, like that's basically it.
Yeah, so we'll be teaching you about sections as well. So sections and anchor tags go very well together. You can give you can define a section to have an ID, and then you can link different links in. You can link that section to say for example a link on the top of your page will take you to the bottom of your page. इस तरह की चीजें भी you can achieve with this anchor tag. So we'll be covering that across the next 2 or 3 lessons. But आज के लिए this is all. I'll stop sharing my screen now. अगर कोई सवाल में ज़रूरत पड़ी तो I'll start sharing again. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat box now. I'll be covering all of them. Yeah, so there are already a few questions here. So yeah, so the P tag is for text. So the P tag is for text. You can have any sort of text inside of that, and the A tag is only specific to it's essentially called the anchor tag, right? You can use it to add anchor links inside your file, and you can also use it to link your web page to another different web page. So yeah, it's only specific. It isn't only specific to hyperlinks, but you can use it to add a hyperlink into your web page. उसके opening tag और closing tag के दरमियान जो आपका content होगा ना वो आपका hyperlink redirect का मतलब you click on it and it will take you to the whatever you had linked inside that. So it isn't only specific to hyperlinks to different pages. It can also be used to anchor, to add an anchor into your own, to link to the same web page, just a different section on the same web page, which we'll also be telling you about later on. अच्छा, so for that I think you have, so उसके लिए होता था कि I think it's saved as .html.txt. So if I'm not sure about Max, लेकिन if you right click on it and check properties, so I'm pretty sure it'll say .html.txt. इसका मतलब है कि it isn't an HTML file, it's just a TXT file जिसका नाम के अंदर .html आ गया. तो उसके लिए what you have to do is you have to save as again, and make sure that when you're saving it, उसके नीचे there's probably going to be an option for all files, and then you name it .html, so it'll automatically detect it as an HTML file. Yes, so you can change the font, but उसके लिए we usually prefer to use the CSS presentation layer because it's much more convenient there. We will tell you how to add snippets of CSS directly into tags themselves, and we'll also tell you how to link style sheets. So yes, you can. Essentially, the answer is yes, you can change the font, but it's much easier when you do it via a CSS style sheet as compared to using CSS elements in HTML. So yes, that is possible. Yes, you can also change the size. You can also change the color. You can also have within the same file, within the same web page, you can have one paragraph which is very big. Like इसका font size बहुत बड़ा है जो ताकि this is, so say for example you want to have a paragraph which is which has a big font size, तो वो भी कर सकते हैं, and then the next paragraph can also be smaller by using separate style sheet or CSS within the tag. So that is something you can do. You can also have different fonts in the same page you can have different colors in the same web page, and you can have different styles in the same page. If you have any more questions, just leave them in the chat box. Also, please make sure that you have Dreamweaver next time. अगर Dreamweaver नहीं है तो if you know if someone's, how do you not have the entire website once you add a hyperlink to a, okay, so let me just share my screen again. Right, so can everyone see my screen again?
Yes.
How do you know? Okay, so how do you not have the entire paragraph become a hyperlink once you add? That was essentially what I was going for actually. The entire paragraph is a link in this case. Link वहाँ तक होगा जहाँ तक आपका closing open जो closing और opening tag के दरमियान चीज़ें हैं, you know this a link right here, this anchor link, उसके अंदर जो कुछ है वो आपका क्या कहते हैं link रहेगा, right? So if for example I just want my name, you know, this my name is Maair वाला part to be within the link, मैं ये कर दूंगा, you know, I've moved the closing tag from you know from here to here, right? And if I refresh it, तो this part इसको click करने से कुछ नहीं हो रहा, right? Just copying the text, selecting the text, sorry, और इस part को click करने से it redirects me, right? So अब जो hyperlink है वो सिर्फ इस part पे है, which is because I moved this closing tag from here from here to here. एक और चीज़, you know, another thing I could if I want, so I wanted the entire paragraph to be a link. तो एक और चीज़ जो मैं कर सकता हूँ, you know, वो ये है कि मैं ये भी कर सकता हूँ, ये इधर से उठा के यहाँ डाल दिया, right? So this comes before. So I've achieved this the same thing. It's just that अब इससे मैं ये कर सकता हूँ कि you know if I want to have separate paragraphs within the same link, वो भी मैं कर सकता हूँ. तो yeah, a lot it is very convenient, but essentially मैंने यहाँ ये किया है कि इस you know opening tag और closing tag के दरमियान जो चीज़ है वो एक hyperlink में convert होगी. I hope that answers your question. This started. Right. Okay, so if so I feel that we shouldn't move on today because a lot of people don't have Dreamweaver. उससे ये होता है कि अगर नहीं होगा तो it's just a very difficult to you know carry both things. A lot of people who don't have it will have a very hard time keeping up because you know a lot of the things that I use tags के साथ आ जाएगा and everything is very streamlined. So I think that holds us back today. If you want, I can go over the things I covered today. If you could just tell me in the chat box if you want, I can just give you a short summary of everything we discussed today. And then from the next class, just please, we'll also look for other resources. Please try to have Dreamweaver installed, ताकि everyone's on the same page and you know it's easier for us to you know stay इकट्ठे. I think I'll. Okay, so I'll give a summary as well. Like in the alternative, if Dreamweaver isn't available, we're looking for those. We had an option from Google, but it's very complicated. I don't think it'll be very accessible for people, you know, especially those who are just starting. So we are looking. If we don't find sources for Dreamweaver, we will most probably find sources for Dreamweaver ताकि सब उसी पे हों. But if that doesn't happen, then we'll also let you know. Google Classroom page, make sure you are added to the Google Classroom. We'll be updating you there. So yes, in summary, let me just share my screen one last time. Right. So in summary, right. So just ending here. This is a tag. Anything that is contained between the greater than and lesser than sign is a tag in HTML, right? This is an opening tag जिसके slash नहीं लगा हुआ, जिसके slash लगा हुआ है वो closing tag है. Anything contained within the opening and closing tag is a part of that tag, right? So all of this is a part of the HTML tag here. This is a part of the head tag here. This is all a part of the body because it's contained inside the body tags. right? This here is the heading because it's contained inside these two opening and closing tags. उसी तरह ये link anchor tag है और closing tag है. इसके अंदर जो चीज़ें हैं वो यहाँ पे हमने देखा वो एक hyperlink में convert होगी. Close opening tag, closing tag, दरमियान वाली चीज़ bold. No paragraph closing, दरमियान वाली चीज़ is inside a paragraph, right? उसी तरह we had the self closing tags, we had, sorry इधर डाल देता हूँ, we had BR, which is the line break. What it does वो भी ये है कि it adds a line, or it breaks the text, and we don't have to have a closing tag for this because it's self, right? उसके अलावा we went over paragraphs, right? How you paragraph tags and how you use them to add text in your content layer. This is the only way to add text into your properties. You can also add text between anchor tags, but then that will appear as a hyperlink, right? So paragraph is basically to add text. Strong say wo text bold ho jata hai. There's also like other things you can do to your text directly through HTML, which we'll be covering later on. And then there's a whole host of things you can title here, which is title यहाँ पे highlight किया हुआ है, ये यहाँ आता है, right? This is essentially what your tag will be called. And then उसके बाद the last thing we covered, second last thing we covered, sorry, was hyperlinks, and how you add them using anchor tags. I hope everyone understood that. This becomes very important later on, especially when you have like multiple web pages on a website. So you have to have links, in between all of those pages. And then uske baad, the last thing we had were heading tags. This is essentially just to differentiate your headings from your paragraph text, and it's mostly an aesthetic thing, and it's very versatile when you consider adding a style sheet along with HTML. So the heading tag is very useful for when you use style sheets along with HTML, which is essentially a must at this point. You have to have a style sheet. So yeah, so a heading tag is very versatile. Then we'll cover it in more detail when we're going over CSS. Right. So I think that's all. Any questions you have after this, you can ask us on Google Classroom. Just drop questions there. We're all going to be online there for as long as for as long as possible, and वहाँ पे we'll cover as many questions as we can. The next session
Maair, I think your audio is stuck.
Saram, is there anything you has anything to add? Or not? We can end the session right now.
I have a handout. I have a handout that has the basic HTML tags defined. I'll be sharing that in the Google Classroom, so do have a look at it. And you don't need to learn them, but the point of sharing is for you to get